I think maybe going into it, I was expecting something a little bit different. But to your point, there were still lots happening. We're going to get to Lando and Oscar at the end, because that was definitely like the crescendo of the weekend and what could have been. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Formula One True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. We're back after a week. I'm back after a few weeks. Life and things happen, but we're back here. We're talking F1. We're going to talk about the Montreal Canadian Grand Prix. Here with Drew, I'm Walker. I was at the race last year. The weather was shit, but it made for a pretty interesting race. Definitely add a little spice to the race, to the day. Lots of incidents, and I feel like this was probably, up until maybe the very end, it was probably one of the cleaner races we've seen this year. And if I say cleaner, what I really mean is boring. What do you think?
I think you're bang on. Like, I think if you tuned in at like lap 56 and just caught like the last 14 laps, you would have been just as happy. It was honestly, the race was great. Like, the weather was nice. It looked good. Like, everything was there. Qualies was awesome. Can we talk about Albon's like engine cover just ripping off? Like,
that was very impressive.
That's crazy. And it was actually impressive and very interesting for me to see how much downforce that created, because he was totally skidding around. Like,
you saw him going to that final corner, exactly. That final chicane, and he was just like nowhere with it. So definitely loses a lot of downforce with it.
Yeah, which shouldn't be surprising with all the aero parts on here. Like, you assume, every piece has a very specific role. But yeah, it was just interesting to see that, and also see them recover, right? Like, I thought the FIA would have been, wildly inspecting that, kind of, looking at him and then making sure that that wasn't going to happen to Carlos Sainz. Was it like a factory defect, or was it just like a one-off? Guy forgot to put a couple of screws on. So I just thought that was interesting for him to go out and then put it on, P6 for Q3, right? So I thought that was quite cool. But yeah, it was a standard race, but we have to give credit where credit's due, and like, our boy Georgie Porgy put an absolute banger lap in. That was incredible. When you saw Max, Lando, Oscar like putting in laps, and then George was like 10th down in the sector 1, 10th down in sector 2, and you're like, this is like, does he have this going into it? I didn't know, because Kimi obviously did his best. And I was just really impressed with what George put out, and he didn't fumble the bag at all when it came to the race start. Like, it could have very easily done that. To be honest, I think Max kind of fumbled that race start a little bit. It looked like he dropped back. Yeah. So I don't know. It was okay. You know what I mean? Like, the race overall, like you said, clean is a good word for it. Like, all the boys played nicey nice, obviously up until Lando, Oscar last couple laps, but it was pretty clean. The tires, they didn't know what those hard tires were going to look like, because they only get a couple of them per race. And, as Max said, they're a little bit fragile, and they didn't really break in too well. And so that played into a huge portion of the strategy with these guys coming in. And, Red Bull had a very clear idea of how their strategy was going to go. And, they were very committed to it. Like, they pulled Max in first, like on both of those pit stops, and they knew they were going to just give Max the best shot at it. Obviously, the car didn't have the pace, but, Max driving any car would give it a shot, right? So, yeah, I don't know, man. Overall, I thought it was a pretty decent race. And, I learned today that F1 signed on Canada until, is it 2033 or 2035 or something like that? Anyways, we got a bunch more years coming back to Montreal, which makes me very happy, because I still think I am the biggest F1 fan that's never been to a race. So potentially.
See, you're talking about this, and the way you're describing it is like, it's bang on, right? Because qualifying was fire, right? And just seeing George come up at the end, and just with everything that was happening, even Lando struggling, was surprising. And it reminded me very much of like a Monaco-esque type weekend, right? Like, you had like a ton of action on Saturday. That really seemed to be the way that this race was essentially won. And when you look at, I was there last year, as I mentioned, and the weather wasn't great. And I think the weather definitely added a lot more dynamic to the race itself in terms of like passing opportunities and action on track. And I don't think I really, because I was there last year and because I was taking that in, I don't really think I remembered how difficult of a track it is to overtake on generally for this generation of Formula One cars, right? So I think maybe going into it, I was expecting something a little bit different. But, you know, to your point, there were still lots happening. We're going to get to Lando and Oscar at the end, because that was definitely like the crescendo of the weekend and what could have been. When we're looking at quali, so you got George kind of banging out that last minute lap, very impressive. You got Max there. You have Oscar. It was actually quite surprising to see Lando down in 7th.
Yes. I think, you know, Oscar was extracting more out of that car than it had. I don't know why, for whatever reason. That McLaren looked quick, but it definitely did not look the quickest. Do I think if Max Verstappen was not in that second Red Bull, or in that first seat in Red Bull, that they would have been right after? I would have definitely thought that McLaren would have been in the running for second and third place. But I would argue it's much like Ferrari. Like, where were they at? You know what I mean? Like, they just kind of seem lost in the sauce this weekend, from qualies all the way to the race, and they just don't seem like they have the pace. And then you have a team like Aston Martin, who looks like they've picked up the pace in a big way, right? And even Alex Albon, you know, I think Carlos Sainz has been struggling in that car. I'm going to chalk that up to a learning curve. Let's call Lewis Hamilton on that same learning curve. They're still doing fairly well, fairly decent. You know, they're not banging up the cars and stuff like that, but they are just kind of taking that time to adjust. We've talked about that ad nauseum. But to your original point, I don't know which broadcast you watch, but did you hear the kind of spat between Danica Patrick and Nico Rosberg?
I didn't hear the spat. I saw some clips on social afterwards, but no, I was watching the F1 TV
Okay.
stream.
Yeah, it was. I just thought that was quite interesting.
Me.
What's that?
Please inform me. I think Danica was trying to like.
She just downplayed the Canadian Grand Prix, just saying like it's not one of the most difficult tracks in Formula One. And, you know, he's like, it's kind of one of those like simple, more straightforward tracks. And Nico Rosberg looked at her and he's like, this is one of the most demanding tracks. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, you crazy lady. You know what, like, to not get completely sidetracked here, what the fuck does Danica Patrick have to do with Formula One? Like, what are we discussing here? Like, there's those two other chicks that do the commentary. I got no beef with them. One of them, I can't remember her name off. Bernie Collins.
Yeah.
I love her. Yeah. She's fantastic. Yep. And then you got the half black girl. She's amazing. Absolutely awesome. And I think there's another one too. Oh, the other host, the dark haired white lady.
Oh, is she a racer too?
No, I don't know if she was a driver, but that's my point. Is that you don't even have to be a driver for me to just enjoy your commentary and enjoy your interviews or whatever, your presence in the media. And then there's Danica Patrick, who has the credentials, you know, to be. She just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know what it is. It's like, yeah, I don't know.
I feel like she does that to a lot of people, though. I mean, so I don't watch that stream or I don't watch that feed because I am watching normally the F1 TV one. But, you know, I see the memes afterwards. I see kind of some of the clips. And so here's the thing. I'm going to play this card. And I don't even know if I agree with myself. I'm going to play it anyways for just to, like, you know, devil's advocate.
Sure. Banter.
If Danica Patrick had a dick and she was saying the exact perfect timing, by the way.
We went there.
And she was saying the exact same things. Would people be having the same problem?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Would Nico still be like rolling his eyes, given that?
Yes.
Or she just like, is she just so just like, is she too opinionated? Is she
no? She's arrogant, dude. She's arrogant.
So you think it's an arrogance? Okay, because I haven't watched it live, so I'm kind of going off of just like memes and stuff I've seen.
She has this like air about her that like just she's better than.
Yeah,
you know, like I'm the most winningest female driver, and what I don't even know if that's true, but that's the air she puts off, is that like I'm the best chick that's ever been behind a steering wheel ever. And it's just like, maybe that's the truth. You know what I mean? But like, I think you can go about it a lot more delicately in a lot better ways. And I just think that, you know what, having a strong opinion like Nico Rosberg, you know, he blew up the weekend before at, you know, Lewis Hamilton, or I can't even remember who it wasn't Lewis Hamilton. He's had a problem with Lewis Hamilton. He was, But yeah, he was blowing up at somebody else, and he's like, "Oh, it was at Max," and he's like, "When Max dive bombed George," and was like, "That's
Yeah.
a black flag, da da da. That's so dangerous." Nico Rosberg has an opinion, and that's fine, and it's not about that. Is he arrogant? Yeah. Do people kind of like, do you see the back and forth on like social media in the comment section where people are like, "I don't like Nico Rosberg. He says, some offside stuff," and then you get people who are like, "Nah, we need that kind of personality or whatever." I find that the Danica Patrick commentary is a lot more one-sided of the like, who is this bird? And I don't know if that's because as a North American racer that she's just not as global. And so like, Nico Rosberg has F1 credentials. So anybody who's watching F1 knows who he is at least, or has heard his name, where Danica Patrick has the stature and the credentials, but in a North American league. Right. And like, it's a different sport. It's a different sport. And I just think that she doesn't get the same love, and like, look at Martin Brundle. The same thing with him too. Like, that guy's so wildly opinionated. He says some way offside shit, but like, that guy's been commentating on Formula One since like the early 90s. Dude. Like, he's been at this. He's allowed to say whatever he wants, especially on the grid walk.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and he's kind of cultivated his own personality outside of like being a driver, right? I don't know how many new fans really know that he used to be a driver in Formula One. Like, a lot of them probably just see him as like being a pundit on TV that kind of that goes and travels. So I think, yeah, I don't really know how to explain the Danica Patrick thing. Theoretically, she should have some really good insight based on her experience, but on the flip side, you can maybe argue that if she didn't have a dick, that she wouldn't be given that opportunity to commentate on F1 in North America either, because her record is, it's fine, but it's nothing. Is it anything special?
No.
I don't know. I'm trying to look here. Let's see. NASCAR, she had 7 top 10s and 1 poles, 7 top 10s in NASCAR. Yeah, I mean, like, it's fine.
It's on the better half of okay.
Yeah, I mean, she has 1 win in her career in 100 and in let's say 300 races approximately. She has 1 win.
Not good odds. Bad odds. I'm not taking that to Vegas.
No. That being said, she raced pro and I didn't, so
correct.
Fuck me.
Yeah.
What do I know?
She kept the car out of the barriers. That's for sure.
More than I can say.
Yeah.
As of recently. Probably too soon.
Yeah.
All right. Where were we at? We're back to the race. One thing I do want to talk about.
Yeah, let's go. Let's rip it.
I feel like a lot of teams are having a lot of issues with tires over the past few weekends and not really understanding or knowing how they are going to behave. I feel like we saw that in Spain, in Barcelona. I feel like we saw a bit of that in Montreal as well. I know the FIA added an extra compound. So a lot of times, on a weekend when last year might have been your hard compound, this year it's the medium and so on and so forth. But I feel like there's a lot of guesswork with how tires are performing at different tracks. And, I think Montreal is a great example because you look at, George's Q3 time, right? His pole position time, he did that on a medium compound, right? Same with Kimi. Kimi snuck up to, what place was he? 3rd or 4th?
In the race?
No, on quali.
Qualies.
I think he was 4th.
Or 5th? 4th, yeah.
Yeah, like he snuck it. Like they made their times on the medium compounds, right?
Sure.
Which is not generally something you would see in a weekend. Same thing happened last or a couple of weeks ago in Spain. So I'm not really sure what's going on right now or why teams are unsure with the performance and what to expect out of these compounds.
Listen, I don't have an answer, but I think the reality is that I don't remember what the rules and regulations were for last year in terms of the amount of hard tires or the amount of tires that they're given in each category, the hard, medium, soft. Like you mentioned, they did Pirelli set did go down. They all dropped 1. So like you said, the hard tires were last year's mediums, right? So it's all just kind of dropping down one little bit. That being said, if they plan on using the hard tires in a race, because they aren't practicing on them and they are not qualifying on them, they are more of a mystery box. If they're saving those 2 sets for potentially the race, I'm sure they're probably just doing the math. They're like, okay, if the softs behave like this and they compare that to the medium, let's just do that one more level and assume that the hards are going to compare that to the medium. And then they don't. Right. And so that's where I think they run into that problem. But if they can't really practice on, I guess they could practice on one set if they only plan on using one, hard set in the race, but you're running a risk, right? So it depends. And like, look at Max, like he ran through 2 sets of hards and, that's the reality, right? He started on the mediums and then did 2 sets of hards just to kind of make that happen. So yeah, I do notice that. I do understand what you're saying. On the flip, I don't know if this is the flip side, but the alternative, viewpoint is, did Pirelli and F1 and FI and all these guys do this in cahoots to make there be a different strategy? Right? Like now all the teams have to get into certain strategies because the tires aren't lasting as long or they don't behave a certain way that they can expect. Like, are they, I guess, kind of manipulating it a little bit in order to spice up the races, or at least teams making more calls? Because every time that those guys go into the pits, they have to make a call.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, it's good thoughts. I don't have the answer either, right? It's just something I've noticed in the last few weeks. So I was just curious if, there's been a reason that you've heard or what's going on, or I don't know. We'll find out. We'll see. We got a race coming up this weekend, so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in Austria in a few days, which is typically, a pretty tire-friendly track. So we'll see what happens there. Back to the race. We got Georgie boy on the top step. We got Kimi, cute little Kimi.
I like
first podium.
I like that kid.
Yeah.
Have you taken the second to watch the seat?
I did get to watch it.
What are your thoughts?
A little overproduced for me. A little bit too much of a hype piece for me. But that's not to take anything away from him. I don't. Sure. I think that's just Mercedes trying to milk that
to justify why they kicked out the best racer of all time.
Exactly.
Like, we need to make an entire production to tell people why we pushed out Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, no, but I like him. I think he drove a great race. He picked up P3 off of the start line. He had a great start, held it, didn't put it in the wall, didn't make a mistake. He was just solid the whole day. And I think it's pretty amazing to think that he's got his first podium 10 races into the season or whatever it is, something like that, right? So
he's got a first pole and first podium this season so far, which is incredible.
Did it? That also it launched Mercedes ahead of Ferrari for second on the drivers as well, which is helpful for them. They're 16 points ahead of Ferrari right now. I mean, McLaren's in another league, so that it is what it is for them. And we got Lando. Let's take a minute to talk about Lando.
R.I.P. Lando.
You think?
I think that's going to put the Drivers' Championship out of reach.
Let me see where's he at. So Oscar is 198, Lando's at 176, so we're 22 points.
Well, we have a win.
So a win with a DNF.
Yeah.
Or not in the top 10.
If you watched Oscar race this race from the start, he's cautious. Like, he's obviously aggressively cautious. Like, he knows when he's racing Lando, he can race hard, because if they both go. Yeah. Right. Neither one of them are getting points. But I think Oscar is very calculated in his moves. And you even watched Max do this. He was very un-Max Verstappen-esque going into the first corner. So was Oscar. Yeah. Like, they were both very gracious to kind of let George do this because they know he's not a threat in the Drivers' Championship. And then even though Oscar's looking at Max and saying he is a threat, he would rather win the race or get third place towards Max and still be ahead, right? Like, there's all these little calculations that I can't do that. And then when they're going toe to toe with Lando and Oscar, like the papaya, no rules. Yeah, I just think that they're way more risky about it because they can be. Because if they're both going out, they're both losing the same points. I don't think it really matters. But I just think it's very interesting to see how those drivers make those calculations in real time.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think, probably according in Oscar's mind, Lando has a history of I don't want to say choking because I don't think that's fair.
That's exactly the word. That is the word. If you had to pick a word, dropping the ball or like choking, yeah.
Yeah, just not making the best decisions in the moment. I feel bad saying choking, but he's still second. He's only 20 points behind. Like, I want to give the guy credit. And he drove a good race up until that point.
Fantastic.
He got himself. He pulled himself out of 7th place and got him into contention for a podium. And it's just, and you know what, the other thing I will say, which I really appreciated about Lando in this race, that moments after he fucked up, he called it. He knew
He owned it.
He radioed. He owned it. There was no complaining. There was no whining, because I feel like we've gotten a lot of whining the last few weeks with, like, the whole George, George and Max thing, and like who did what, and then the whole safety car thing with George. Like that's a whole other thing. Like, just a bunch of babies.
Let's talk about that. Let's discuss.
But Lando, I just want to give Lando his credit because he called it. He said, my fault. He wasn't trying to blame Oscar. He wasn't saying he cut me off. He just owned it. And I really appreciate that about
100%.
him.
100%. That doesn't happen often. The finger pointing is a very real thing in Formula One, and they point 100%. Fingers immediately. Before it even happens, they're already pointing fingers. It's crazy.
Yeah. So okay. So let's talk George. Let's talk Max on the safety car lap.
I think that's just games. Like, I guess if Max played it properly, could he have tried, like, was his end game to, like, get George to do something that was, like, against the rules, so he got a penalty and then Max won? Was George playing games? It kind of looked like he was a little bit. I'll give it to Max. Like, I don't want to give George a free pass on this one, but, like, he was driving a little erratically. I know it's behind the safety car and everyone can kind of do what they want.
George or Max?
George was. Yeah, I think George, like, kind of braked or did whatever, and I think it was a little erratic. I don't think, Max Verstappen going like inches from passing the guy was the play either. And, he loves to do that under the safety car restarts. Like, that's just a Max thing because he likes, Mr. Opportunistic. I'm here for it. I get it. But yeah, I think they were both kind of at fault. And I'm glad that no penalties were handed out and that didn't decide the race, because that's not very sporting as far as I'm concerned. I think that would have been real chuffy.
Yeah, I think if it's, George just has a bit of a persona right now of being a bit of a,
say it.
I don't know being a bit of a bitch.
He's a bitch. Yeah, he's a little bitch. He's a big bitch. Tall bitch.
Bitch. And these type of maneuvers don't help his cause, right? No. And I don't know, maybe if it was Fernando doing the exact same thing, everyone would be saying like, oh, he's all wily and he's old, and he's playing tricks and he's mind games, and would be applauding him for it.
Sure.
Right? Listen, F1 fans are very fickle and not very objective. And this is the perfect example. Like, I'm going to call myself out. Like, anyone else would doing this, it would be like mind games and racecraft. And George does it, and I'm like, he's a little bitch. Right? So.
No, you're right. 100%. 100%.
But it's just a persona that they build up and that they portray. And I had a friend at the race, a big fan, big F1 fan in general. And she was just like, I would have rather seen anyone else on the grid win. Anyone except George.
Really?
Yeah. She's
an anti-George Russell fan.
Yeah. And I think it just speaks to it. And I think, obviously Mercedes is, he's like their number one guy right now. And they got to put a lot of, big spotlight on him, a lot of media, like, he's the guy representing the team. And it's just, I don't know. So he needs like a
W's. He's done good this year. Like, consistent. Like, he's not winning, but he's consistently up there fighting. Like,
objectively, you can't hate on his performance this year.
Correct.
And I want to. And we've talked about like trying to like, are we George Russell fans yet? And the answer is probably not yet. But
no,
it's hard to argue with his results for the most part.
Correct.
He just, I don't know, he needs like an image coach or something like that.
Is that, what, you bring that up, and that's a great point, because like, I am a Mercedes fan. Has it been hard to love Mercedes as much because George Russell's their number one? Short answer, yeah, 100%. And like, is it an underdog thing for me, or like, I like the new guy on the team challenging the old guy? But obviously, Kimi has not out-qualified him except that once, hasn't outraced him except that once. And it's just but I like Kimi more. Like, I would be happier. right? And George has done nothing wrong to me. He just, like you said, back to this whole image and persona thing. I just think he's a little dorky.
Yeah. And so Kimi makes it palatable to cheer for
Yeah.
Mercedes right now
Yeah.
because, to your point, he's young, he's fighting, he's talented.
Best rookie on the grid, hands down.
Hands down. I mean, he's also in the best car of all the rookies.
Sure, but I think Hadjar's doing a great job in another car, and I still think Kimi's a better driver.
Yep, fair enough. Anyways, to be continued. We'll see.
Fair.
I'm holding out for George, and maybe we can do something here. Maybe we can figure it out. It's just, I don't know, too many double-breasted jackets.
Yeah,
way too many at every single event.
Did you see this thing, the F1 premiere party in New York?
Premiere? Yeah.
I have to say, is the whole extra baggy suit thing, is that like a fad coming back? Because they all look like they were 1920s mobsters.
Who was that? It was Charles. It was George.
Yuki was crazy with it, bro.
Yuki was just wearing his daddy's suit.
It literally looked like he went to Value Village and not picked up the first suit in his section, but just grabbed the first suit he found and was like, "This'll work." It looked like Doug Ford could have rocked that shirt.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that. I mean, I guess that's kind of the trend these days. I don't mind the double-breasted, but everything's just super baggy.
Yeah,
it's
like
just
the old school shoes with the fucking legs folding over top of it. It's very 1920s mobster style, and maybe I'm just out of touch, but the last time dudes were wearing suits, that was short pants, super skinny legs, and that whole fashion is just gone. Yeah. Anyways, on another note, now that we're mentioning the premiere, all the guys were already in North America, just up in Montreal. So the premiere happened in New York yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. And all the drivers were down there. I thought that was super cool. That's where I could see all the drivers standing in the same height, and you see Albon, the tallest, and George, the second tallest, and then the rest of them, and then Yuki. They're all kind of at the same height, and then there's Yuki, who's a midget or little person or
this
whatever.
This is true. Whatever. I mean, listen, we've offended enough people in this episode. I think you can say midget.
Yeah.
This is true. Another thing I thought was funny about this whole F1 premiere weekend. Did you see the whole bit with Qatar Airlines, where they're all in first class? Right,
No.
It's I think Qatar is Airlines is sponsoring the movie maybe or the premiere or whatever it is. So they have this whole thing where all the drivers are hanging out in first class in Qatar, going to the premiere, and I was just laughing to myself because from Montreal to New York, it's a 40-minute flight, and everyone's getting all they're getting all pampered in first class for about 27 minutes between
cruising, and landing.
Takeoff and landing. I just thought it was kind of funny. And obviously staged, but
I will keep an eye out for it though.
It's pretty funny, given if you know how close Montreal and New York are. It's well, what are you doing? You go up and you come down.
Yeah, I did buy tickets though. I do have tickets for.
Oh, do you?
For the 27th, I'm gonna go up to the Eglinton Theater and watch it in IMAX.
Sick. IMAX. There we go.
Yeah, pretty pumped.
That's gonna be exciting. Yeah, I gotta go see that. Very excited.
Have you also watched the trailer for the F1 movie on the iPhone in the Apple Plus app? This isn't a plug for the movie. Have you watched it? The trailer?
No, I have not.
Man, they got all the vibrations of your phone.
Oh, really?
To match the shifting gears and it was very interesting. It was the first time they've ever done it. I thought it was super cool. I went on the app, did the whole thing, and it was it was pretty cool. So I could definitely see that kind of starting a trend with media and stuff on the phone is somehow manipulating. Cool. I gotta go check that out.
Definitely gotta check that out. You know what? While we're on the topic of Canada and the US, I do want to shout out the FIA and Formula One for one thing. And as long as I've been a fan of this sport, I feel I've been shitting on them for their ridiculous scheduling and how they kind of plan their routes and hopping all over the place. And, they went from Miami to Monaco to Montreal. They're going back to Austria now. They're just all over the place. And they released a 2026 schedule, I think, this past week. And to my delight and surprise, Miami and Montreal are back to back.
Okay. Making sense to the world again.
Yeah, so they're doing Australia, China. They have kind of Asia, Middle East. They're coming to North America. They do their whole European trip and then back to North America and South America and stuff like that. It's not perfect, but the fact that they could do Montreal and Miami back to back
in the same time zone.
In the same time zone, week to week, I think is gold star.
Can I further tell you how that gold star might turn into a silver or even bronze star? Because they put the Canadian Grand Prix as the exact same day as the Indy 500.
Yes.
The 110th anniversary. And there are a lot of motorsports fans that are not having it. They're like, you literally ruined Christmas. Like, this is the best day, or what should be the best day. And you guys absolutely pooched this.
It was a big motorsport weekend. You had the Indy, you had Le Mans, you had 24 hours, you had the Formula One. Lots going on this weekend. Lots going on. But
next year, the Canadian GP and the Indy 500 are on the same day. And it's not normally a problem, but it's at the same time. That's what I think the issue is the overlap.
2 screens, multiple feeds. Let's go.
Yeah, it's 2025. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, we're aiming for Mars now. Screw the moon. We're going to Mars now. We can watch two things at once.
Everyone has
like, who's not on their phone and looking at the TV anyway? Let's get real.
Thank you.
Right?
I don't see the big deal. It's fine.
I'm over it.
All right. Austria coming up. I made a mistake. It's not this weekend. It's the following weekend.
Yeah.
But anyways, Austria, Red Bull Ring, Max's home, or I guess one of their home races. They'll call it. One of them. I think they have like 3, don't they? I mean, they have like...
They got Zandvoort.
Zandvoort. Don't they claim Singapore as well for some reason?
I think.
Because part of like their ownership group?
I think the Philippines is like where Red Bull originated with like the guarana and the taurine that was in it. Kind of came out of... Because they keep... Red Bull used to come in these little glass bottles.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
I do,
yeah. When they were like at the convenience store at the front, like in the gas station, like right beside the teller, like beside the lighters, where the now 5-hour energy drinks are like being held. And it looks so sketchy because they were in these like super sketchy little medicine bottles with like Thai writing all over it. And you're like, I'm not drinking that.
Years later, look at us now.
We're getting fired up on it. I got 18 different colors in my fucking fridge right now. Let's go.
So we got Austria coming up. Maybe we'll do like a little preview of Austria next week.
Hell yeah.
As we lead into that race, but that should be fun.
Something juicy is going to happen in F1 too. You know, we just give it a week. Something will come up.
Something's going to happen.
And we got the F1 premiere next week. It won't be in time for the podcast, but yeah, next Friday is the premiere, or at least the Canadian debut. I think it's the worldwide debut. I think that was just the premiere was yesterday. I think the rest of the world will watch it on the 27th.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then it kicks off the European leg, or I guess the second European leg of the season. So lots of races coming up, lots of racing to look forward to. Drew, any last words?
Yeah, let's take this opportunity to shout out to Discord. Let's shout out to socials. Let's do all that good stuff. Wherever you want to find us, we're going to be there. If you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeart, wherever you're getting your podcast, we appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, do the same. Find us anywhere. Link will be in the show notes. You guys can do your thing. Appreciate you.
There we go. Perfect way to sign off. Buddy, a lot of fun. Glad to be back. Talking some F1. This has been F1 True North. I just fucking malfunctioned for a second.
That happens, man. We're back.
There we go. This has been F1 True North. I'm Walker. That's Drew. We'll talk to you next week.